Good morning, everybody. I'm Linda Brubaker, and this is Job Search Lunch and Learn. We're all excited today because we're doing something new this week, starting to bring in some experts to help talk to us about a variety of different issues, all to help you determine or to help you move forward in your job search. So I'm pleased to announce or to introduce, I guess, Orly Zeewy. Did I pronounce that right, Orly?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And I'm going to let Orly introduce yourself. But our topic today is the idea of elevator pitches. We all know that they're important. I don't know about you. I know that mine is tough to put together. I keep changing it, never sure that it's right. But an elevator pitch is important for so many different reasons, and Orly is an expert. So I'm going to let Orly introduce herself. Tell us a little bit about it. Orly, are you sharing any slides, or are you just going to?
So I actually, it's just a few slides. It won't take
I
that
just want to
long.
make you a co-host.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my presentation, and I'll go ahead and share the screen.
Wonderful. And as she's doing that, remember, guys, the chat is always open. You can do that there, and there'll be plenty of times to ask questions as we're going. Can you all see her screen?
So let me move it into slideshow mode.
Not a problem. Just want to make sure people can see it. I can. Can you all?
Great. Hopefully everybody can see it.
If you can see it, please just write a yes in the chat so that we can know that it's going perfect. All righty.
So hello, my name is Orly Zeewy. My consulting practice is Zeewy Brands. I'm the author of Ready Launch Brand, the lean marketing guide for startups. And pitches are kind of my, I guess, a little bit of my superpower in terms of helping my clients really get clear on who they are and how to communicate in such a way that people get it, they want it, and they're hopefully willing also to pay a premium for it, which is part of the goal, of course. Before we get into what I mean by switch your pitch, I want to put our conversation in context. So I always start here because if you don't understand this, it's hard to also understand why we need to be so succinct. The fact of the matter is that we are being messaged at a rate of roughly 12,000 messages a day, which is more than 4 million a year. Now, what's interesting about this statistic, and this of course is Times Square, because in my world, it's as if we're each standing in the middle of Times Square. How do you stand out, right? How do you make sure that people hear you and that they understand what it is you're talking about? So what I wanted to mention is that as our messaging intake has increased, our attention span has decreased. In fact, we are today at 8 seconds. In 2000, it was 12 seconds. And to put it in perspective, the average attention of a goldfish is 9 seconds. So all this to say is that you don't have a lot of time. And that's why it's so important to be succinct and why it's so hard to do it, because it's very easy to talk about what we do. We all know what we do. The important thing is not to talk about what you do, but really focus on the person on the other end of that conversation. And that brings me to the next piece, which is really the difference between a sales pitch and an elevator pitch. Most of us have been in networking situations where we ask someone what they do and they go right into a sales pitch. And the sales pitch is really all about the what and the how. What I do, how I do it, how great it is, and that's all well and good when you're in an interview setting. That's the time to talk about the what and the how. What I want you to remember is that the elevator pitch is really a starting point. It isn't meant to tell somebody everything. It's meant to start a conversation. And the goal of your pitch is to help somebody understand why they might want to refer you, why you might be the perfect candidate for a job that's coming up, why you versus the 30 other people they're going to be talking to. So and this is the hardest thing, honestly, to come up with the why, because what and how is easy. We all know what that is. So how do you build a true elevator pitch? And I'm just going to show you there are 5 things I'm going to walk you through. And then I want to make sure that I leave enough time to hear some of your pitches. So how do you build a true elevator pitch? Well, the first thing is you need to make me curious. And the reason I start here is because instead of talking about the what and the how, think about something that's unusual, that's different about you. And remember that we are all humans, and humans are by their very nature curious. So the way I typically start is I say, I'm a facilitator of light bulb moments. If that doesn't mean anything, doesn't resonate with you, then that's fine. Now I know that you're probably not a good prospect for me. And it's the same thing if I were looking for a position. I would talk about, what does that mean? If somebody said, yeah, tell me more about that, right? That's what you want to hear. You want to hear, tell me more. And so then I would say, I make fuzzy clear. Well, that's interesting. That's a conversation starter, right? Again, it's about making someone curious. And then the next step is you need to identify a real problem. So when you've worked someplace, you've been problem solving in your whole career. Think about some of the problems that you've solved that would relate to this particular situation. So in my world, right, when I talk about the problem that I solve, I talk about cutting through the noise is hard. It's as if we're each standing in the middle of Times Square looking to be heard, right? It's all about cutting through the noise. And then be the solution, right? You identified a problem, now talk about how you solve that problem. So for me, what you want to think about is who do you help, what do you do, and why you, right? So the who, what, and why, very important. And so what I say is I help founders and solopreneurs cut through the noise so they can attract their ideal clients and scale fast. Linda, you had a question?
I'm getting some comments in the chat saying that you're a little hard to hear, Orly. Can you
Oh
turn
my
up your
goodness.
sound a
Oh,
little
I'm so
bit?
sorry. Oh my gosh, I apologize. I had my microphone was further away. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
My apologies. So anyhow, yeah, so again, who do you help? What do you do? And what do they get? So I help them cut through the noise, not just because, I want to do this for fun, but because that way they can attract their ideal clients and scale fast. So you always want to think about what is the outcome that the person you're talking to, again, whether it's a potential client or it's a job offer or job possibility, how do you want to be known? Like what is it that you want people to remember? And then there's the show me, don't tell me, which is actually one of my favorite aspects of an elevator pitch. You want to use a story. And obviously this is when you have time. Like, you've got the 15-second where you just say your pitch, but typically because the pitch is there to start a conversation, you want to tell me a story. And so I have on hand several stories that I use when it's appropriate. And I make sure that the story fits the situation. So if you think about a project that you worked on and how you solved a problem and what was the solution and kind of how that all worked out, you can think of a story, again, very short, very, very short, that helps people to kind of connect the dots. And then of course, practice, right? Which you all know this, but the reason I put this in here is a reminder really for myself. Because what you want to do is the more you rehearse, the less your pitch sounds rehearsed. And so you want to constantly be thinking about, how do you say this? You already, or I know these are pitches, but okay, got it.
I'm sorry, Orly.
Yes.
We lost you when you started talking about practice, practice, practice.
Oh my goodness. That's so weird because it did not freeze on my end. So I apologize. Yeah. So what I was saying is that, the reason I put this in here is because the more you rehearse it, the less it sounds rehearsed. And so I put this in here really to remind myself as well, because the thing about pitches is you don't want to sound like you're pitching. So, yeah, sorry about that I froze. Yeah, it's weird because I didn't see anything freezing. So usually I would. Okay, so I'm going to open this up to the floor here, and then Linda, maybe you can help me pick a couple of pitches, and then we'll bring the person on, and then we can have a conversation about your pitch.
Wonderful. So Frank has his hand raised. Orly, would you stop sharing your screen?
Oh, yes, of course.
Not necessarily to volunteer, but to clarify.
Yes, please.
Are we talking a networking elevator speech, or are we talking answering an interview question about tell me about?
No, networking, because before you answer questions, you network. I mean, you don't just show up somewhere and start talking, right? So I'm looking at it more as a process, because a pitch is really when you're just having conversations. When you're actually answering interview questions, I'm assuming then, are you in the interview at that time? Yeah, that's very different. Yeah, that's very different. Thank you for that question. You're right.
Mhm.
I definitely want to clarify that.
And it's a great clarification. Frank, that is something that we do talk about in some of these lunch and learns, and we'll talk about it a little bit next week. We'll talk about it in a variety of other sessions as well. We also have an Ask Me Anything session coming up in a couple of weeks, so that's another good spot.
Any
Thank you.
other questions before I go into the chat?
Come on, guys, you normally aren't shy.
And I apologize for, you didn't hear me. I froze. My goodness,
That's okay.
technology.
When I go through and put it, the video link up, I will make sure that I correct or try and at least correct the sound so that we'll get it there. It should be easier to hear. So what questions do you all have about elevator pitches? Are you comfortable in yours? You're shaking your head.
Lori is shaking her head. Lori, is yours in the chat? Because I'll now.
Are you willing?
Were we supposed to put it in the chat?
You don't even want to put it in the chat? Is that
If you
right?
want to, Frank, that was what we were talking about today, is in the chat today. Put a little bit of elevator pitch along with how to get in contact with you. And for
Gotcha.
people who aren't comfortable with their elevator pitch, they can put in their standard, here's what I'm looking for, here's where I'm looking for it, get a hold of me.
So Frank, I'm actually seeing yours, and I'm sorry, what's the OC?
What's the OC? Oh my goodness. Orange County, California. Orange County, California. The OC. It is the OC.
Oh yeah, like I'm supposed to know that. I'm in
You
Philadelphia.
are supposed to know
I don't
that.
know what OC is. OC here would be Ocean City, New Jersey.
Oh, no. This is where the hit meet the
Orange
trip.
County. I got you.
Correct.
Okay. Do you want to take a stab at your pitch from?
Sure. I'll give you a shot.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So you've heard the parable about if you feed a man a fish, you can feed him for a meal. If you teach a man to fish, you can feed him for a day. What would happen if you could teach the entire community to fish? You'd build a fishing industry. And that's what I do, is I build training programs that reach out to various communities, to organizations, to help their people become better at what they do, skill up and build a business. As I did at KnowBe4, where I was the VP of Global Instructional Technology, managing a $20 million business line, building e-learning content in the cybersecurity industry. And I forgot what you wanted me to end with.
No, what I was going to say is you were really good up to the time when you started talking about your past position. So here's the reason why I would stop before that.
Okay.
If they're not interested, it doesn't matter that you did it before. You
True
first
that.
want to make sure that they really want to learn more about it. So there's also this kind of a sequence of when you speak and when you stop. I really liked what you said about teaching a man to fish, you know, and the idea of teaching a whole community to fish. I thought that was a really great example. What I would do is also thinking back about your own experience, you know, think about how you can connect that to a more immediate kind of situation where once you've told me the parable or the analogy, connect the dots for me.
I'll need some help with that one then.
Yeah, so all right, so let's take one more shot at this. So you said you talked about teaching the whole community to fish, right? Okay, and what is that? So let's not worry about the elevator pitch. And I'm typing just so I can kind of keep track of this. What does that mean when you teach a community to fish? What do they get? Remember, it's who do you help? What do you do, and what do they get? So who do you help? What, because community is a big term. Think more specific. What kind
Organization. I would teach an organization, right? Or I
Okay,
would build
and what
training.
kind of org?
I build training programs for any industry really, but primarily in the past has been in the IT technology industry and or
Okay.
cybersecurity awareness.
Great. So let's stick with that for a second.
Okay.
So, and who do you work with? Because when you say organizations, are you working with the CEO? Are you working with the is it CIT? Right? Is it the
CTO, CIO?
CIO?
Who do I work with? I work with all departments, cross department. Typically operations or the how-to is the most common.
Okay.
The onboarding of customers, the onboarding of employees, I should say also. So internally and externally. And
Okay, now we're
skilling up.
getting into the weeds,
Okay.
so I'm gonna
Yeah.
stop you. I
All
hope you
right.
don't
Fair
mind.
enough.
I want to make sure I also have time to look at a few others. I'm hoping a
Understood.
couple more.
No problem.
But here's what I would say. I think getting a little bit clearer on who that person is and think about, what is the problem you're solving for them? So the teaching the community to fish, you could say, once you've said the analogy, I would talk about, I teach IT, ops, whatever, focus on a specific, even I know you talk to lots of different people within the organization, but, you can talk about the onboarding of employees. Pick one and then connect the dots to that. And then talk about what's the outcome. Because what I didn't hear was the why. And the why is the reason they want to talk to you further.
To make more
So have
money.
you thought about, so what's the why? What do they get after they work with you?
They make more money. They're more efficient.
There you
They're more,
go.
okay.
There you go. Make more money. I wouldn't quite say it as crassly as that. I might say, talk about an ROI, talk about growth, talk about sustainability, talk about, there's lots of ways to talk about this, but if that's really the goal, is that ultimately they're also able to better handle the constant change of technology. I mean, you're in a space where it's constantly changing. And so you being able to kind of help them navigate that change, I think would be something to consider.
Fair enough. Thank you.
I hope that was helpful. Was that helpful?
That was helpful.
Frank?
Thank you.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Okay.
Orly, forgive me. We've got some questions coming up in the chat and some people asking if they can ask some questions. So,
Absolutely.
okay, Esmeralda, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Can you hear me, Linda?
We can.
Okay. My question is not related to this topic. I apologize, but it's a very timely topic for all of us. If you do not have premium membership, LinkedIn has taken away, you can only send 5 invitations a month, which is, how do you connect to people? I was on Brenda's 4-hour event on Saturday, and I couldn't reach out to folks, and it was extremely frustrating. And I'm just trying to see if people have workarounds, ideas. I would do premium, but I don't have the money to do it.
I truly understand. And that is a question that's important. I'd like to stick to the topic today, but here's the
Sorry.
That's okay. So here's the idea, Esmeralda. For those of you who are in our private group, you can send a message to anybody in that private group, and you can do that without wasting any of your LinkedIn connection messages. You can do that for free. From the people that are here, if you get a copy of the chat and you're in our private group, or you're going to just copy the chat yourself and save it, you already know why these people are reaching out to you. Everybody's put their LinkedIn URLs in the chat. Just connect away. You don't even need to send a message. Okay, is that okay with everybody here? Okay, because I'm one of those people who still has a free account and I'm limited to 5. And it's a random anywhere between 5 and 15. So it does make it very tough, Esmeralda. I agree. Okay.
So I'm not seeing any elevator pitches here. Does anyone else have a pitch they wanna?
I
They
put an
wanna try
elevator
out?
pitch in. This is Cheryl Sequeira.
Hi, Cheryl. Can you put
I
yourself
put it in
on?
at 12:19.
I beg your pardon?
I put it in at
She's telling the
12:19.
time.
Oh.
So if your
I'm
time
scrolling back
is
up.
based on wherever you are in the country. So for me, it would be 11:19.
Okay.
Right.
Orly and I are both in Eastern time zone. I can
we
I
are.
can read it if you like.
Yes, now I don't see it. What, did you put it in the chat?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind. All right, so go ahead. I'm gonna type while you speak. And can you take yourself, can you put yourself in video or are you not able to do that?
I'm just not very camera ready.
Oh, that's
We never
okay.
care. We truly
We
don't
don't
care.
care. It's just nice to see a face when you're talking, but
You're absolutely right. I wasn't even thinking about that.
no, it's
So,
okay. It's okay. So Cheryl, and where are you calling from, Cheryl?
Michigan.
Oh, okay. Oh, we're in Michigan.
I'm in Lansing. I'm the center of the state, and I'm actually a Pennsylvania girl, but my family is from south of Pittsburgh.
Gotcha. All right, let's hear your pitch. I'm gonna type away. You go ahead.
Okay, so hello, I'm Cheryl Sequeira and am a HR leader with a passion for aligning the business and all resources to solve problems and gain results. I've been called an HR psychologist as I can quickly assess an organization and pinpoint areas to improve business results by focusing and leveraging talent management, organizational development, and change management. And then I go on to say my experiences in private, public.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you. Sorry. I'm gonna stop you because it's already very long. I would say I like the idea about being an HR psychologist. So instead of I would introduce myself that way. Hello, I'm Cheryl Sequeira and I'm an HR psychologist. Stop. Now tell me what that means. Now tell me what that means for the organization.
Because I can quickly assess an organization and pinpoint areas to improve business results.
Okay, but again, think about a psychologist. What does a psychologist do? They listen to they understand the subtext, right? Of whatever someone's saying. So it's not about, I think, again, it's the difference between telling me what you do and how you do it and telling me why I should care about it, right? So the why is the important thing. So, and I love that if you start with, hi, I'm Cheryl Sequeira and I'm an HR psychologist. I love that. I think that's a very strong, and that would make me curious. Yes.
Okay.
Linda?
My only concern about that one is that there are people who have that title. Okay. So I'd be careful about saying that because it may.
Well, I've been called an HR psychologist.
That's much better.
Okay.
Okay. That's fine. I thought you actually were a psychologist. So I apologize since I don't know the subtext of all of this. And then, I would think about more in terms of, how does a psychologist go about learning something? And, and then think about, so what is it that you do? I mean, I know you talked about aligning resources, but all of that, that gets into the weeds. I want to try to bring you back up to the 10,000-foot view. So think about like one thing that you've done that's been incredibly helpful, successful, meaningful for an organization.
Well, I'm not going to be able to say it succinctly, so I guess I'll tell you how, why in my own mind. So I've grown up elsewhere in the world. I have been in a lot of different industries. I've been in both the private and public sector. I'm extremely curious and I can pretty much connect with anybody in a short period of time. So whether that's listening skills, whether that's curiosity, whether that's, I've already been around the block. I'm not certain how to say that.
Right, except again,
not quite that way.
Yeah, I mean, and so what I'm hearing is that you're multicultural. That would be one way to say it. Because I say the same thing because I've lived in many countries and I speak several languages. So I talk about being multicultural, multilingual.
Oh, I'm not that strong.
But the thing is that important for me to know in terms of thinking about you as as a hire for my organization? What's the thing that's gonna help me, like, what you're
Again, I can
describing,
quickly
right? You're
assess an organization and figure out where the issues are.
Okay, so so again, you were talking more about your characteristics, curiosity, multicultural, right? But that's about you. What I want to learn is, how does that help me, the organization? And I think you
Okay.
started talking about that, right? This idea that, you know, the connecting the dots, or being able to see beneath the surface, see what's, you know, and then help me understand what you do with that. Like, what do you do with that ability to see beneath the surface, and being able to then do what?
Well, I think we're at, hi, I'm Cheryl Sequeira. I've been called an HR psychologist. I can quickly assess an organization and pinpoint areas to improve the business by aligning resources.
And what do they get as a result?
Anything the organization needs, whether it's change, just what Frank said, you know, change, ROI,
Okay.
business results.
And so what I think would be helpful for you, and Mark, I'll get to you in a second here. What I would suggest to you is come up with, think of a story that illustrates this. It might be easier if you start with a story. I find that if I have a story and then I can break it down, then I sort of reverse engineer my elevator pitch.
Oh, okay. The story is, I was at Ford and did a special process that aligned the business to meet corporate results. And we put in metrics that align throughout the organization, and you could tell where you were with the metrics. And I believe that the work we did in the 2000s was the reason why Ford was the only one of the big three that didn't ask for a bridge loan in 2008.
Okay, stop right there. That's the story, not all that other stuff.
Okay.
That you, because of what you were, see right there, that's the why.
Okay.
And I think, and it's a really powerful one. So, you know, one of the things one of the things that I do when I work with my clients is I really help them sort of unpack their whole story, because what happens is we get so lost in how we do it that we forget that the person we're talking to doesn't know us, doesn't know our process, and is not necessarily, and remember, you know, you've got like 15 seconds at best, right? So what you want is to get to the heart of it. And that example of how you were able to in 2004 was the only one. That's an amazing story, like right there. Like, that's what I would share.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, great.
You. And
Thank
I
you.
know this is hard, so I just want to thank you for, you know, being brave enough to get on here. And I hope you understand I'm doing this, you know, with love and respect. I'm not, this is no judgment at all. And I mean, this is hard. And
No, not at all. I really appreciate it. And I was trying to get into the whole HR psychologist instead of using that story. So I went about it a different way first.
Oh,
So
and yeah, and that's fine. That's fine. I mean, you know, this is not about being wrong. This is about, how do you stand out? That's
Exactly.
really what I want to help you guys consider, is because you're up against, there's so much competition. Our attention span is so short. I don't have time to figure out why I need to learn all this.
does
So
it
that's
matter
why,
that I did that 20 years ago?
only if it's not applicable today, but
Okay.
I wouldn't talk about, yeah, it is 20 years ago. You're right.
So, yeah, if
Maybe
we,
Oh, it's
not
totally
mention,
applicable.
yeah, maybe not, don't mention the dates and don't mention the company, because I don't know. You have to, I would go and see if you had anything else, right, on
I agree.
that was closer. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you're right.
It's
20
an
years.
absolutely great story, but let's see whether we can find a way of either making it a little more generic so that we take the date and company name out, or find a way of talking about another story. But again, absolutely a great idea. Got another couple of hands raised, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
Mark was next.
Mark
and
was
then
first, and then
Rifat.
Good morning, Orly. Thank you for this presentation. I'm trying
Welcome.
to
Hi,
make,
Mark.
I'm sorry?
No, I was just saying hi, Mark.
Hi. I'm trying to make much greater use of LinkedIn in this networking process, because I really think that that's been underutilized in my own search and networking. How do you merge the elevator pitch towards using it in networking. And I'll just tell you, someone suggested that I get all my contacts together and start sending out, individual messages to the contacts I choose. Is that an appropriate place to use this pitch in those, in reaching out to those contacts in terms of?
No. No, it is really not. First of all, people hate that. They do not want you to message them on all this stuff because they know what the reason you're doing it. So here's what I would suggest. First of all, once you have your pitch, that's, I use like what I mentioned in my presentation about being the facilitator of light bulb moments, that's on my headline. So your headline is where you kind of take your elevator pitch and sort of break it down. And so if you go on my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that I'm using a lot of the same language. And so the way that you want to start to attract people is you want to post relevant content. LinkedIn is all about building business relationships. It is not a sales tool. It's not about, like Facebook. It's not about all these goofy whatever posts. It's really, you are there to build relationships. And you need to think about, like, how would you feel if somebody messaged you, had done, like, was clearly doing a bulk messaging. That's, I think I actually think that LinkedIn might realize that it's spam and they might cut you off. So yes, Michelle is talking about this. Yeah, making connections, developing business relationships. And so instead, like, think about, your profile really needs to do a lot of the talking for you. And then what I would suggest, instead of mass kind of spamming these people, find people who are leaders in your field and go on their LinkedIn profile and check out their content and maybe engage on their content and show how you think about these things. It's just, think about it like you're having these conversations, but you're doing it online and you're doing it for people who maybe you don't know, but you want to get to know.
Absolutely. That whole idea of engaging in content, that's the way you make yourself that professional that other people want to talk with. One of the other places you can add your elevator pitch in your profile, Mark, if you want to, include it in your about section.
Actually, I'm gonna push back a little bit on that, Linda. In the about section, so I have a whole framework around this. So the first part is you want to, you should only have about 3 or 4 paragraphs. And don't forget, you should always have a call to action. Think about what you want people to do. But in your about section is the opportunity of sharing the story that I was telling you about that shows kind of how you're using the skills. The first paragraph is really who you are, what you've done, just a very brief, right? It's not a resume, just kind of brief takeaways of things that people can go, oh, here's someone who has this experience. Think about things that you're doing or have done that are unique to you. I worked with somebody on their profile who had retired from the Army as like a lieutenant, rear admiral, something or other. I mean, it was like very high up there and it was nowhere on their LinkedIn profile. And the reason to put it in there was because she had been doing leadership work with very high level people in the military. And that's why she could say, look, I have been doing this for 17 years. That's why I'm a leadership coach, because I have this training. So you want to think about, what you've done in the past that kind of fits with where you are. And then you want to tell us the story.
Absolutely. That whole idea. No, I agree. So the only reason that I mentioned using that pitch, if you wanted to, as a little piece of your of your about section, is that some people want to include it. I don't think it's necessary. To me, the about section is you. The rest of your profile is what you've done. But that about section gives that opportunity to tell your story, how you got there, what runs through your career, that thing that you bring that nobody else did, just like Orly was talking about with that person who has that military experience, and that colors and informs what she does and how she does it. And that's fantastic. Okay.
Thank you. Rifat, am I saying it right? Is it Rifat?
Yes, Rifat. Thank you.
Rifat, you're welcome.
Thank you for this wonderful event. I actually wrote my pitch in the chat very early on before I heard your instructions. So now I want to modify it based on your instructions. So I'll give you my pitch, but I'm still not sure how to do the last part, and would like some feedback and guidance on that. So should I go? So I'm a cancer biologist.
I'm typing, so please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm a cancer biologist and an entrepreneur who's passionate about bringing scientific discoveries and innovation to commercialization. I enjoy doing this because it'll make an impact on improving healthcare for all. Most recently, I co-founded a company based on the research that we did in the lab to develop a diagnostic test. And I worked as a COO and really built a good foundation of
Okay, I'm gonna, sorry, Rifat, I'm gonna have to stop you because you're now going into explanation mode. That's not a pitch. So when so what I heard, first of all, is that you are at the intersection of business and science. Is that, would you say that that's a way to very quickly put me in the space, right? I'm in the intersection of. Now, the idea that, you know, you founded a company, what is the purpose of your pitch? That's something I didn't get a chance to talk about. You have to understand, like, again, what's the story? What are you hoping to get from your pitch?
So, you know, I had a more succinct pitch, but then I started to tell a story that I built a company, which is not in my original pitch. In my original pitch, it is like, I'm a scientist and an entrepreneur, passionate about bridging the two, improving healthcare. And I have done this as a startup CEO, COO, and looking for my next adventure to, do this all over again. That is my original pitch, but it doesn't say what I offer. And I just don't know how to build in what I offer.
So here's what I would suggest to you. First of all, you can start by saying, I'm a serial entrepreneur, right? Because have you built more than one? So that's pretty powerful. I'm a serial entrepreneur and I bridge the gap between science and business. So just in those two things, you've already given me something that, because remember, part of this is also building trust and like. So now you want to say about, what you want to do. Is if you're looking for your next adventure, that's great for you, but that's not a why for the person on the other end. That's your personal why. So I want you to think about for a minute, what is your professional why? Are you looking to build a new company? Are you looking for co-founders? Are you looking for a position as a CTO or CFO or COO? What is, right? So you need to identify, because, we tend to go into all of this without having a clear kind of picture of what's the end goal. So of all those things, I mean, what is your next, again, not from a personal, but from a business, so that, because people want to help. So if they understand who you are and what you're looking for, they're already thinking, how can I help you? Because human nature, we want to help each other.
My professional goal is to be involved with another startup and help build it.
Great. Okay, stop right there. Wonderful. So I am looking, so I'm looking to join another, is it a biotech startup?
I'm open to.
So you're not necessarily looking for science or I mean, you're the entrepreneur piece, that's more for you, right? That's your personal, like you're an entrepreneur at heart. And I get that because I am one as well. So I think starting out by saying I'm a serial entrepreneur, which now that makes sense. I bridge the gap between science and business, and I'm looking to join another startup so that I can, right? What is it that you're going to bring to the table? Is it about, you're looking for, I mean, are you looking to join on the board? Are you looking to join as a co-founder? Are you looking to join as a COO? What is the position you're looking for?
Co-founder is optional, but more into the C-suite executive in an executive role, in a
Right,
leadership role.
but there are lots of, I mean, in a startup, it's a very small thing. So
Yes.
is it more about on the ops side, more on the tech side, more on the research side? Where do you see yourself in that next?
Ops.
There you
Ops.
go. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So already you're a lot clearer, right? Because now you have the starting point, which is who you are and what you do. So now I get that, right? So if you're talking to somebody who's in that space or has been struggling with bridging that gap, you'd be an amazing asset. So then you want to think about, right? You're looking, and again, the idea is you're looking to join another startup in operations, and then, think about like what you bring to that so that you can include that, because so that I can. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I hope that's helpful.
That's helpful.
Oh, good. Because I think what happens is we get so caught up in our own space, and we forget we are not speaking to ourselves or to people who know everything about us. It's, again, the elevator pitch is really just a place to begin a conversation. It is not the whole conversation. And, sometimes people think like, oh my God, I only have these 15 seconds. I got to get everything in there. And it's just the opposite. Remember, you got to really cut through the noise with something that people can remember.
That's absolutely right. In our head, there is 100 stories or 100 things that we need to relay, because that's how we feel people will get to know us. But you're right, we have to hone down on the essence of who we are and start with that. And it's hard. We have to practice to just stick to the essence.
Exactly, which is why practice is such a big part of the pitch. It's taken me years to be able to be that clear. Just so you know, It's not like I've known all along, and actually I didn't even come up with the term facilitator of light bulb moments. That was a friend of mine who's known me for years, knows what I do. And she's like, oh, I know what you do, Orly. You're a facilitator of light bulb moments. Like, duh. So, I give credit where credit is due. So it's not all coming from us, and which is why it's always good to practice. I was just looking to see what Frank had put in the chat, that you're a serial killer. I don't know if I would use that particular terminology just because the times we're living in, but I do like the idea that you kill inefficiencies in an organization. I don't think you have to call yourself a serial killer, maybe just.
Yeah. Orly Frank has this great sense of humor that he brings up to these meetings.
I get that. Yeah, I get that. That did not
say you're our comic relief, Frank, but I love the comments that you bring every week and the way that you are willing to really just put yourself out there, which is fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that I know you will only have a few more minutes. So I wanted to encourage you guys, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Please.
I'm also would be happy to give you a 20-minute discovery session. So I will put all that stuff in the chat. I also have a free download for tips on how to build your personal brand. So I will put all those 3 things in the chat. Is that the best place?
Absolutely. That would be a great way to do it. Thank you for being willing to connect with people and to do all of that. And Orly, by the way, also has a course that she's going to be doing shortly that's going to be about building your pitch. So she's going to be able to put some of that information there as well, or reach out to her and get some more information about what she's doing.
Yeah, I will. So I will include my LinkedIn profile, also my email. If you want to just reach out to me directly, I can tell you more about the course. It starts on March 5th. It runs for 3 weeks, an hour and a half each week. And it's really, you come up with, and at the end you have an elevator pitch. Yes, Michelle.
Hi, Orly. Nice to meet you. My question is, so as I've been listening to this conversation, everyone feels like they have a strong elevator pitch, and I certainly, I guess, don't. But one of my questions is how do you take like 10 steps back and really just think about what your strengths are so that you can pull the elevator pitch better, I think, together? Like one thing that comes to mind, and I just recently learned, is you can do that self-assessment, Clifton
Strengths.
Strengths. Yes, thank you.
Oh, yes.
And is that like a good way maybe to start so that you can think about, what your strengths are to maybe to pull it together?
No.
I
I
agree.
don't think so. I mean, yes, okay. I mean, for you, and I hope, I'm sorry, I'm a very direct kind of person, but
That's okay.
but what I mean to say is I don't think you need to sweat that kind of detail. What I would do instead is when you look at, and you have a resume, you have a work history, what I would do, and this is actually where I begin, is ask people who you've worked with what they, what they remember about you. Like, what's the thing that stands out for them? Like, get feedback from the people you've worked with. And find out, what are some of the words that people have used, and then think about the projects you've worked on, the companies you've worked for. What have you brought to the table? That's what people really want to know. The piece about, your strengths, and then there's also Strength Finder, there's a whole bunch of stuff. That's really for you. And also, the D as a D, whatever, the DI, that one, all those kinds of things, they're all really so that when you're talking to somebody, you have a sense of who they are. But what you're really looking for right now is, what do I do? Who do I help? And what do they get? Those three are that's the core of all of this. What do I do? Who do I help? And what do they get? And you have the history already. So my suggestion to you would be, go through your history, find a story that illustrates that. And then again, reverse engineer your pitch based on that. Because that story should have a happy ending, right? You did something, it helped somebody do something, and as a result, they got X, Y, Z. That's really what, and remember, my attention span is at 8 seconds. So 15-second pitch is already almost double my attention span. I think that's really helpful to keep that in mind. It's why I always put that into my presentations, because you have to remember that you don't have an unlimited amount of time. You've got a few seconds, and by the way, on a website, you got 6 seconds before somebody makes a go, no go decision. That's why homepages are so critical. All right, so
Same thing with your resume. Remember, you've got 2 to 9 seconds to grab my attention. You've got just the same amount of time for that pitch. So yes, those strengths, Michelle, are really important, but not necessarily for this part of it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay.
So I hope that was helpful. I'm just putting in my
Perfect.
my email so people can yeah, and what I would say is feel free to book a complimentary call with me. It's 20 minutes. Reach out to me. Like I said, my course doesn't start. It's a workshop, actually. It doesn't start until March 6th. So feel free to talk to me, and I am offering a discount for anybody who contacts me through this call, this conversation. So this group. So if you're a member of the group, I'm offering a discount. Any other questions for me while I'm here? And I know, Linda, I know you have some things you need to do housekeeping wise, but
absolutely. So
yes.
Remember, when we're done, you can take a copy of the chat. I will also put the chat in the private group. I've included in the chat how you join the private group. If you don't have that information, first level connection, and you can request it, or you can send me a message and I will make sure that it's there. The other thing that I've just added to the chat is that we mentioned this LinkedIn Live-a-thon. Okay, the WBL Live-a-thon last Saturday was a great conversation. There were 4 hours worth of speakers and panels, all talking about a variety of different aspects to help you find your next job. The playback is still available, whether you attend it or not, but you have to register, and I put the registration link in the chat. Okay, we only have a couple of minutes left, and I forgot to do this at the beginning of the meeting. For those of you who did my poll in the private group, I appreciate it. Anybody have a success they wanted to share? Didn't give Al a chance to do that formally. He did it in the chat. Okay, but anybody have a success from last week that they want to talk about?
I do. I've had 3 interviews. Again, I'm getting the interviews, which is great. The exception is obviously either waiting to hear back when they promise or just waiting to get an answer. And the majority of these interviews are coming from applications direct to them or through the channels of LinkedIn or whatever. Again, we all know that's not the 100% way to do it, but while you're looking and trying to find the companies that you're doing, it doesn't hurt to do a little bit of Monster and LinkedIn and Indeed, all those, because you just never know who's going to reach out to you. And I'm getting those. It's just I'm waiting to hear, are they going to move forward? We're going to move to the next level. But again, I'm happy. And then the other thing is one of my contacts who I finally got to have a conversation with is trying to help me with a previous company and another company she has a contact at to see if she can get me into them because they have jobs or have a job. So at least the success is there. And she even offered to redo my resume. I was like, you do whatever you want. I'll take whatever you will give me. So
Fantastic.
just never know what people are going to do for you.
That's exactly right. And the idea that people only get jobs through networking, that's not true. Many people, most people, me, I've only gotten my jobs through the direct application process. The networking helps you learn more about the company. The networking may give you an added insight. The networking may give you that employer referral, but it is extremely rare. You shouldn't say that. In my experience, okay? The fact that somebody just takes your resume and walks it down the road or says, here's somebody you need to talk to, and that turns into an offer is not the norm. Doesn't say it doesn't happen, but it's not the norm. So absolutely don't count on just the networking to get you your job. Keep networking, and we're going to continue to talk about how to do that, but continue applying as well, making sure that you're targeting everything to that job you're looking at, in that particular job.
If I could jump in on this
Please.
for a second here, Linda, that's why you need a really strong LinkedIn profile,
Absolutely.
because 89%, and this is actual data, 89% of HR directors go to LinkedIn to find talent. So if you do not have an all-star LinkedIn profile that helps people really get who you are, what you do, and who you help, it's a lost opportunity.
Absolutely. It has to be really strong. And not only that, your engagement on LinkedIn has to be strong too.
And can I just ask a quick question about this LinkedIn? I mean, I've been on it, I'm a premium member, but I know I have LinkedIn training, but where is the latest, greatest to update my profile since I'm now back in transition? Any tips on that? You know, I'm premium member paying all this boo-foo bucks, but I don't know where to get the fast, like, you know, I know the algorithm changed, but where do I get that training?
So there are lots of places to get it. There are lots of LinkedIn experts who are offering that training. Laura, you and I can talk offline. And
Okay,
I
thanks.
point you in the right directions and give you some ideas.
Thank you, Linda.
Absolutely. It's also one of the services that I offer. I know, Orly, do you do profiles as well?
Yes, I do. I look at it from a brand perspective because I'm a brand strategist, which I didn't go into detail about who I am, but the way I look at, the way I work with people, in fact, I'm working with somebody right now on their LinkedIn. I really help you brand it so that people get who you are and what you do and why it matters. And, you know, I've had a real strong success rate with people getting noticed, not just getting, you know, the right connections, but actually when I've worked with people looking for jobs, they've gotten jobs through their LinkedIn profile.
Wonderful. So that LinkedIn profile is really an important thing. It's somebody asked in the chat earlier whether it should be the same thing as your resume. The answer is no.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
They absolutely need to be different things. There needs to be a specific reason that I want to read both. They complement each other.
And I would also say that, you know, back to content, that when you engage, the first thing somebody's going to do is go to your profile. So if your profile is not a strong profile, they're going to move on. You know, there's a whole, you know, I do a whole thing of looking at, you know, how we read the profile and you know, the goal is not to stop the scroll. And, you know, there's a whole lot of other stuff. Anyway, Rafat, you had something you wanted to ask?
Yes, thank you. I learned about this event through the WBL event. And so, one of the issues I have with updating and being active on LinkedIn is that I don't want to raise any flags to my colleagues that I am now suddenly active, now suddenly connecting with a lot of people and, looking. So how do I navigate that?
Oh, boy.
Okay, so one of the things that I would recommend is that you start commenting also on your company's posts. And if they ask you what's going on, you're trying to increase visibility for them, okay? And what you're doing, okay, is helping to strengthen their brand and build up that credibility. It does it for you as well, but if you're doing it that way, okay, making sure that at least some of your comments are based on what they're doing, it reduces that red flag and becomes, oh, look, isn't she great? She's helping us succeed.
And I that's so true. Yes, Linda, I love what you just said. And I would also add that having a strong profile means you also, you are working there, so their name is right there. And then, so it actually helps them if you have a strong profile because you're a reflection of them at this point.
Exactly. Just make sure that you
I wouldn't say, hey, I'm looking for a job, I wouldn't put that big circle around your profile, your picture that says looking for work, so.
I probably shouldn't discuss this and take everybody else's time here, but just wanted to say that I made a mistake. I made a mistake early on in my LinkedIn profile is that I have a LinkedIn profile as an academic. And then when I started the startup, I did a lot of work on the startup, but we had a separate LinkedIn profile for the startup. So all my achievements and work was on that startup profile and all of my interactions was there. And I kept my personal profile or my professional profile just empty, devoid of any action on that, just because at that time there was a conflict with my day job and working a second job in the startup. And I just wanted to minimize the effect here. But now in retrospect, my profile doesn't show any of the work that I did for the startup. And suddenly now I want to go into this other world of startup and I have 500 connections in the business, but I cannot bridge it because it's just going to be like, why are you suddenly now in the industry instead of in academia?
So yes, so I understand that that's an interesting kind of a switch that we can talk about in another lunch and learn because we are almost out of time and I want to make sure that everybody has it, or make an appointment. Okay, and I can help point you in some of those right directions.
Sure, thank you so much.
But it's definitely a question that we will talk about in other lunch and learns.
I just want to add to what Orly said on the comment and on companies. I had at one time, I commented on a company's post. Marketing actually reached out to me through an in-mail or whatever because I had made it. Now I wasn't asking for a job. We connected, had a conversation briefly, and I said, if you ever have something and you feel I'll continue to look, I hope we can keep it open. They said, absolutely. So it does work. You just have to know how to do it. And Orly, obviously, because brand strategist. So it did work. And I encourage everybody to do it. If there's a company you like, see what they're doing, comment on their posts. You just never know.
Absolutely.
And I just want to say one last thing about that. That's actually such a great point. That while you're doing your research, look for companies where you want to work or look for startups. Everything, just so you know, LinkedIn has something like, I don't even know how many millions of monthly users now, but maybe 390 million, something like that.
There are over 100 billion, there are over 1 billion profiles now.
Yes, but the monthly
active users is much smaller.
But just so you know, 4 out of 5 are decision makers. So it's really easy to do your research on LinkedIn. You can, and I'm sure if you don't know, it's very easy to find like the companies and you can look for industries and then you look for CEOs, look for founders, and then you can actually do your research on LinkedIn and find the companies that you're interested in and start engaging on their posts.
And you should, absolutely.
Yeah, engagement is really key. So I definitely encourage you to do that. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Orly. We really appreciate it. Any other
very welcome.
successes? I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to do them all. I apologize for that, but this was such a great discussion. Orly, you gave us such great information and things to think about as we're moving forward. Really appreciate it. As a reminder, I'm going to stop the recording. Okay,